The therapy room was quiet, filled with soft afternoon light and the faint scent of lavender. Emily sat on one end of the beige couch, her hands tight in her lap, staring straight ahead. Noah sat on the other end, shoulders tense, eyes on the floor. The space between them felt colder than ever. Their marriage, once full of love and laughter, had slowly faded into silence, and now even words felt like strangers. Dr. Laura Bennett, their marriage therapist, glanced at both of them. She had been seeing the couple for months now, and progress had been slow. They came every week, hoping to reconnect, but always left a little more distant than before. Today she had a new idea, one she hadn't used often, but had seen work wonders. She set down her notepad and folded her hands. "I want to try something different today," she said gently. Her voice was calm, thoughtful. Emily and Noah both looked up, mildly surprised. Dr. Bennett continued, "I've invited another couple to join us. Just for today." Emily's eyebrows lifted slightly. Noah leaned back, visibly uncomfortable. Before they could respond, the door opened behind them. A couple stepped in, Clara and James. They looked to be in their late 30s, like Emily and Noah. Clara had soft eyes and a steady presence. James had a kind face and walked with quiet confidence. They nodded politely, introduced themselves, and sat across from the married couple. Dr. Bennett smiled reassuringly. "Emily, Noah, this is Clara and James. They've agreed to share a bit about their own journey. I think it might help to hear someone else's experience. Sometimes perspective can open doors we didn't know were closed." Emily and Noah exchanged a hesitant glance. This wasn't what they expected, but something about Clara's calm energy eased Emily's nerves. James gave Noah a slight respectful nod, and Noah returned it with a guarded one of his own. Clara began speaking first. Her voice was soft but confident. "2 years ago, James and I were about to separate. We lived in the same house but barely spoke. We were more like roommates than partners." Emily's eyes shifted toward Clara, surprised by the honesty. "We tried to fix things ourselves," Clara went on. "Tried ignoring the problems, pretending things were fine. But they weren't." James picked up from there. "It wasn't one big fight that broke us. It was the silence, the lack of touch, the way we stopped seeing each other." Noah shifted uncomfortably. Emily looked down at her hands. Every word seemed to echo their own struggles. But hearing it out loud through someone else's voice hit differently. Dr. Bennett turned to Emily. "What are you feeling right now?" Emily hesitated, her voice quiet but sincere. "It feels like they're telling our story." Noah nodded slowly, still processing. He hadn't expected to relate to strangers, but something about Clara and James made it easier to look at things clearly. Their pain didn't feel like judgment, it felt like reflection. Dr. Bennett leaned forward, sensing the opening. What if healing doesn't just come from looking at each other, but from learning how others find their way back? Emily looked over at Noah again, really looked at him. For the first time in months, he met her eyes and didn't look away. Clara shared a moment that had changed things for them. A late-night conversation that had started with frustration and ended with honesty. "We told each other things we hadn't said in years," she said. "Not angry things, just the truth. I missed him. I wanted to be seen again." Emily blinked fast. Her throat tightened. She felt the sting of tears she hadn't let herself feel in a long time. Dr. Bennett then posed a question that took both couples by surprise. "Would you be open to an exercise outside of this room? Nothing romantic. Nothing complicated. Just honest one-on-one conversations. Emily, I want you to meet with James. And Noah, I'd like you to spend some time talking with Clara." The idea hung in the air like something too strange to grasp. "What?" Noah said, confused. "It's not about replacing your partner," Dr. Bennett explained. "It's about seeing through someone else's lens. Sometimes when we speak to someone outside our story, we hear ourselves better." Emily hesitated but then nodded slowly. There was something intriguing about the idea. Not dangerous, just different. Clara looked at Emily kindly. "We're happy to talk. It's just conversation." James offered a gentle smile. Sometimes talking to someone who's already walked that road can help. Noah looked to Dr. Bennett for reassurance. And this helps. It can, she said simply, if you let it. The session ended not long after, but everything felt different. The silence between Emily and Noah as they walked to their car wasn't cold this time. It was thoughtful, curious. A new chapter had quietly opened. And neither of them knew what would come next, but for the first time in a long while. They weren't afraid to find out. The days after that unusual therapy session moved quickly. But Emily and Noah couldn't stop thinking about what Dr. Bennett had asked them to do. The idea of meeting with the other couple, talking honestly and openly, seemed strange at first, almost uncomfortable. Yet beneath the hesitation, there was a flicker of hope neither wanted to admit. Maybe this was the chance they needed. Emily was the first to reach out. She called James and arranged to meet at a small cafe downtown. When she arrived, James was already there, waiting with a calm smile. The cafe was quiet, with soft music playing and sunlight streaming through the windows. They sat opposite each other, and at first the conversation felt stiff. They talked about simple things, the weather, the city, their work. Neither wanted to dive too deep right away. But James had a gentle way of asking questions, and slowly, the walls between them started to lower. He asked Emily when she last felt truly happy or free. The question caught her off guard. She thought about it and realized it had been years since she'd felt that way. She spoke about her love for painting, something she had given up after having kids and feeling overwhelmed by life's demands. She told James about the colors she once loved, the dreams she'd shelved. He listened carefully, never interrupting, simply letting her speak. James shared parts of his own story to how he and Clara had drifted apart, not because they stopped loving each other, because they stopped trying to understand one another. Emily found herself opening up more than she expected. She felt heard in a way she hadn't in a long time. Meanwhile, Noah met Clara at a nearby park. The autumn leaves were falling and a gentle breeze blew through the trees. They sat on a bench, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the afternoon. Clara spoke softly about vulnerability, how, for her, admitting fear and pain wasn't weakness, but a way to connect. Noah confessed how lost he'd felt in recent months, like he was walking through a fog, unsure of what he wanted or needed. Clara didn't offer quick solutions. She didn't judge or lecture. Instead, she just listened. Her presence was steady and comforting. Noah found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't with Emily for a long time. He realized that sometimes being heard without pressure was the first step toward healing. As the days passed, both couples met separately, and each conversation stirred something deep inside. Emily discovered parts of herself she'd forgotten: the artist, the dreamer, the woman who could laugh and feel alive. James encouraged her gently, reminding her that it was okay to want more from life and from love. Noah, through talking with Clara, began to see his own fears more clearly. He saw how much he had been holding back, how much he'd been afraid of failure, rejection, and loss. Clara's calm honesty gave him the courage to face those feelings without running away. Back in therapy, Dr. Bennett asked how these meetings had gone. Emily admitted that talking with James had reminded her of the joy she once had and the possibility of reclaiming it. Noah said that speaking with Clara made him want to try harder to be more open with Emily, even if it scared him. The room felt lighter. The tension that had been there before seemed to loosen just a bit. Both couples realized that this unusual experiment wasn't about replacing their partners or finding new love. It was about rediscovering what was already there beneath the pain and silence. Emily and Noah found themselves reflecting more on their own relationship. Recognizing the small moments they had lost: the good mornings, the gentle touches, the shared laughter. The conversations with Clara and James had opened their eyes to what love really needed: attention, honesty, and a willingness to be seen even when it was difficult. One evening, Emily and Noah sat together after dinner. Their talk was slow, careful, but honest. They shared thoughts and feelings they had kept inside for too long. For the first time in a while, they listened to each other without judgment or defensiveness. It wasn't easy. There were tears, moments of doubt, and fears that the past might be too much to overcome. But beneath it all was a growing sense of hope, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. The experience had changed them. It wasn't just about the other couple. It was about learning how to open their hearts again. The silence that had filled their home was slowly being replaced by words, by understanding, by connection. Clara and James, too, found new strength in sharing their journey. They realized that healing wasn't a straight path, but a series of small steps forward, together. In the quiet moments after those talks, both couples understood something important. That love wasn't about perfection or always getting it right. It was about showing up, being honest, and daring to hope. Even when the future felt uncertain, the wildest desire wasn't about escaping reality or chasing fantasies. It was about finding the courage to face their own hearts, to be vulnerable and to reach out to each other, and to themselves. And that made all the difference. Emily felt nervous as she walked into the quiet cafe where she was meeting James. It was their second meeting since the therapy session, and this time she was more ready to open up. At first, their conversations circled around simple topics: work, hobbies, and family. But James's calm voice and kind eyes made Emily feel safe. And soon he asked a question that caught her off guard. "When was the last time you truly felt seen?" Emily paused. It was a question no one had asked her in a long time. She thought back to her younger years, too, when she was full of dreams and hope, before life had worn her down. Slowly, she began to talk about her love for painting, how she used to lose herself in colors and brushes, but had stopped after the responsibilities of marriage and motherhood took over. She admitted how lonely she sometimes felt, even when surrounded by family. James listened without interrupting, his expression gentle and understanding. He shared a little about his own struggles with Clara, admitting that sometimes he felt trapped in routine and silence. Emily found herself smiling despite the heaviness of their words. There was something healing about being able to speak honestly to someone who wasn't part of her daily life, someone who could listen without judgment. Meanwhile, Noah met Clara at the park on a crisp afternoon. The leaves had turned gold and red, swirling gently in the breeze. They found a bench under a tall oak tree and sat quietly for a moment before Clara began to speak. She talked about vulnerability not as weakness, but as a way to connect. She told Noah how opening up to James had been hard, but necessary for healing. Noah felt an unexpected relief as he admitted to her how lost he had been lately, how he didn't know what he wanted anymore. Clara didn't offer advice or quick answers. Instead, she simply listened, her calm presence creating a safe space. Noah felt something shift inside him. He realized he had been holding in fears and doubts for too long, and just speaking them aloud made them lighter. He told Clara about his love for Emily, how he missed the closeness they once had but didn't know how to get it back. Over the next several days, both Emily and Noah continued their conversations with James and Clara. The talks were not about romance or replacing their partners, but about rediscovering parts of themselves and the meaning of connection. Emily realized how much she had buried her own needs and dreams. James encouraged her gently, reminding her that wanting happiness was not selfish. Noah found strength in Clara's honesty and her belief that healing required courage and patience. These new conversations stirred feelings that had long been buried. Emily felt a renewed sense of hope and energy, and Noah felt more willing to face the challenges in his marriage. They began to see their own relationship in a new light, not as broken beyond repair, but as something worth fighting for. When they returned to therapy with Dr. Bennett, both couples shared their experiences. Emily spoke about how talking with James helped her remember joy and creativity she thought she had lost. Noah explained how Clara's openness inspired him to be more honest with Emily. Dr. Bennett smiled, noting the progress made outside the therapy room. That evening, Emily and Noah sat quietly in their living room. The silence between them was no longer cold, but filled with possibility. Noah reached for Emily's hand and she didn't pull away. They began to talk carefully, honestly about what they wanted and needed. Tears came, but so did laughter. They weren't perfect, and the road ahead was uncertain, but they were together again. The conversations with Clara and James had done more than help. Emily and Noah see their own struggles. They help them remember how to love. It was not about grand gestures or easy fixes, but about showing up, listening, and daring to be vulnerable. Both couples learned that healing was a slow process, built on small steps and honest words. The wildest desire, they realized, was not about escape or fantasy, but about being truly known and loved, despite flaws and fears. As the weeks passed, Emily and Noah felt the first real stirrings of hope. Their hearts, once heavy and closed off, began to open again. They didn't know what the future held, but they were ready to face it together. When Emily and Noah walked into the therapy room that afternoon, something was different. There was a lightness between them, subtle but real. For the first time in a long while, they arrived holding hands. The space that had once felt heavy with silence now seemed open, as if a door they had long kept closed was finally unlocking. Dr. Bennett greeted them warmly, noticing the change right away. Across the room, Clara and James exchanged knowing smiles. They had all walked through something difficult together, something more than just therapy sessions, and it had begun to heal parts of their hearts. Emily spoke first, her voice steady but soft. "We talked," she said simply. "Really talked, like we haven't in years." Noah nodded beside her. "We listened too. Not just heard, but really listened." Clara and James shared their own experiences, how opening up had helped them find new strength in their relationship. They didn't claim to have all the answers, but they knew that honesty and presence were the keys to moving forward. Dr. Bennett leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. "Sometimes," she said, "our wildest desires aren't about fantasy or escape. They're about something more real, being seen, being understood, being wanted again." Her words hung in the air, full of meaning. Noah looked at Emily with fresh eyes, his voice quieter than usual. "I forgot how much I love the way you see the world," he said. Emily's smile was gentle, tears shining in her eyes. "And I forgot how much I need your calm in my chaos." There were no promises of perfection or easy fixes. What they shared was a new beginning, fragile but hopeful. They were not cured, but they were willing to try again, to face their fears, to be honest with each other. Clara reached over and squeezed Emily's hand. "Sometimes," she whispered, "helping someone else save their love helps you save your own." It was a quiet truth that resonated deeply with everyone in the room. As the session ended, both couples felt a quiet peace settle around them. They hadn't just shared stories. They had shared pieces of themselves, vulnerabilities, hopes, and fears, and in that sharing, they found connection. Emily and Noah left holding hands, walking slower than usual, taking in the moment. The path ahead was still uncertain, but they had taken the first real steps back to each other. The wildest desire, they realized, wasn't about seeking something new. It was about rediscovering the love they almost lost, the love sitting right beside them all along.